And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Bubba Bat Flip, episode 46. Week 2 is in the books, and we just had FAAB run, and that was crazy. And there's been injuries and bullpens and opt-outs and you name it. It's happened, and we have a long ways to go this season. You can find me on Twitter at BDentric, and my co-host, as always, on this endeavor on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. Toby, how we doing, man?
We are tired, Bubba. We are tired. It's been a long week. It's been a long FAAB, man. That FAAB was grueling. I generally do FAAB on Saturday night, so I get it all lined up. And then on Sunday, I make a couple tweaks, just, injuries, news, whatever. But this week, it was just kind of a go, go, go type of thing. So I know a lot of people were experiencing the same thing. I have way too many leagues. It felt exhausting to go through that. As weird as, or as not grueling fantasy baseball should be, it felt grueling. So here we are. We're on the other side. FAAB ran through. Sometimes some are good, some are bad, some are whatever.
Yep. I know the feelings. I was actually proud of myself. I got most of my FAAB done last night. Did a couple of other leagues this morning. I was 10 o'clock in the morning, done. I'm like, sweet. We went out with the family and did some things. And then just news after news after news. And I tweeted it. You tweeted something similar. Just like, what do we do? Like, it's all for nothing. It's just chaos. That's why I titled it Week 2 Chaos. I guess it's just going to be a weekly thing. I think I'll change the number each week. But we won't go too, the COVID stuff is out of our control. There's going to be cases, it seems like. Baseball's going to play. I guess accept that for now. It's just going to happen. And the schedules are changing. Even like Jeff Erickson, I think, was tweeting it last night or this morning. They tweak some schedules around. Now all of a sudden the Rays have a double hitter, which means 2 7-inning games instead of the 9. So if you start doing the math on stuff, you're losing at bats. There's just so many moving parts in what's going on.
Oh, which Rays game?
This will be good radio. If you give me 2 seconds here, I will.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I mean, things are all over the place. They're wacky,
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to hope that that it doesn't hurt you worse than it hurts other people. We were talking before the show. It's like, in my best main event team, I had JT Realmuto all last week, just like sitting there doing nothing. I have a bunch of Blue Jays on a couple of my good teams, and they're just sitting there. I had 2 or 3 spots in pretty much every single one of my teams that were just kind of sitting empty through the weekend, and in some instances, pretty much through the week with injuries and stuff like that. So you just got to hope that over the course of a shortened season, it evens out as much as possible, and that it doesn't result in you having, suffering, the brunt of it. But obviously that happens in any season. So you just gotta be able to, you got to try to do what you got to do.
Okay. This is the Rays deal. Mark Tonkin tweeted it from the Tampa Bay Times. Jeff Erickson retweeted it type deal. He says the Rays are now officially off on Thursday after supposedly playing on Thursday, and they're going to play a doubleheader versus the Yankees on Saturday. So they're not going to play Thursday. They're playing a double dip on Saturday, which means 2 7-inning games instead of an extra couple 9-inning games. That move took place so the Yankees could play 4 games with the Phillies this week, because the Yankees are supposed to play 3 with the Phillies, 4 with the Rays, but do Rays Thursday through Sunday. And so my point through all this is going to be an ongoing thing. Like right now, like we had the Phillies and the Marlins miss a whole week. We're going to have to find ways to mix and match, because they're going to really try to get that schedule taken care of, as crazy as that sounds. Mm-hmm. And now the Cardinals might have more positive tests, so they might be out this week, which means the opponents they're playing this week might be out. It's just going to be a revolving door of like WTF. And it's just all you can do is the best you can do. I'll ask you this, because there's really no correct answer. But after what we saw last week, you mentioned rosters, you had locked, I tweeted out stuff. A lot of guys had it where after lock, all this was happening. We had no way to change things. Knowing the Cardinals situation, how do you approach the Cardinals and the teams they're playing this week in your weekly lineups?
I tried as much as possible to get backups. I don't have a ton of exposure to Cardinals, but I think it impacts on a couple levels. Like first, I have Yadi Molina as my backup catcher in a couple of my main events. And so in those, I think one of them I got Travis Heineman or Tyler Heineman of the Giants, because it's going to be 4 games in Rockies. But I think one of the things you got to balance is it's like everybody's like every game counts, every game's important, and that's true. But you got to balance which games are more important. So it's like is it more important to have a backup catcher or to have maybe a better hitter be available, to be flexible, where you know that there's going to be guys that miss time. And so I think that's a lot of the calculation that that you're trying to figure out is like, what's the path of least harm, like, to your fantasy baseball team. So like, are you, yeah, it's like, we're all going to be dealing with that, right? We're all going to have spots this week that end up being blank. I was telling you before the show, I have 4 Cubs, I can't back them all up. I just have to hope that down the road, when there's double headers, that I can help make it up, or that there's going to be other guys who are in similar situations, and it's just going to happen across the course of the season. Because if you worry too much about all of it, then I think that's what I kind of felt like in FAAB, is I was getting so bogged down in that level of details of like, okay, this guy might be out, so I need to back up here. It's like, well, let's pause. Like, I don't want to be dropping any guys that I don't want to be dropping right now. So let's just try to focus on like, okay, like what is the overall theme for this week? The overall theme is I want to have a full rotation. Like, I want to have 9 pitchers who are going, who I feel good about. That was priority number 1. And priority number 2 was I want to have as much flexibility as possible on my hitting, recognizing though that I'm going to take some zeros probably at some point in time. And that's just beyond control at this point in time. You just hope that when you drafted, you didn't have exposure like I did to 4 Cubs, so that if the St. Louis Cardinals series is canceled, that you're just not sitting there like, well, oh, well, like that's just the way it is.
Yeah. And Toby's saying that because the Cardinals are supposed to play the Tigers for 4 and then play the Cubs over the weekend. So in theory, the way you could go about this, at least this is how I'm going to do it. Cardinals pitching, pretty much not going to, like, even Flaherty, I'm not going to stomach that, because it feels like if they have any more positives, if it's like 2 or 3 more tomorrow, they're taking the week off. It just feels like that's what's coming. So pitching wise, for sure. Hitting wise, I don't feel comfortable with it. It's one of those, if you want to put it in versus the Cubs because things change, you can do it on the weekend. Otherwise, just don't roll the dice. If you're in an FBC style, you can play your Tigers on the weekend, play your Cubs to start the week. You're just going to need to know that you're going to have some kind of backup plan. And it's too late now because FAAB's already run. But going forward, that's kind of the strategy you're going to have to take. And at least that's how I'm taking it. Like you said, you want a stable rotation. Trying to put a Cardinals guy out there, not very good. And then Tigers guys, even and Cubs guys, say a Tigers guy was supposed to pitch on Thursday. Well, now with no games all week, does that guy get moved back to Monday the next week or something? Is he even going to throw? Like, these are the little things that make it difficult. That, as weird as it sounds, you, like, especially pitching wise, you just got to kind of cross these guys off for a week, which really sucks when you're talking about Flaherty's of the world. Now, when you're talking about the middle tier guys, okay, that is what it is. But like, it sucks. But you mentioned it with the Cubs bats. You'd hope with all the double headers, because these guys, right or wrong, most of it's wrong, the way Major League Baseball is handling this, they're going to try to get every game in the way they're making this work. They've already discussed like pushing the season back, like double header. Like, there's teams playing like 37 games in 35 days right now. Like, it's going to be stupid. Like, that shows you how much they care about player safety, like big time, like right there. So hopefully it evens out in the end. But let's go to, this is a more positive notes, but I don't think we need to keep going on in this cancellation thing. Lots of opt-outs, lots of injuries. Let's look at how we can fix these situations or kind of attack them. We'll start with the Brewers. Lorenzo Cain opts out over the weekend while they were hanging out in Chicago hotels, waiting to see what the heck was going on. He hops out, and then Ryan Braun's now on the IL. So it's 2 outfielders / DH gone. You got to imagine Ben Gamble's going to get more run, especially versus right-handed pitching. How else are you looking at this Brewer situation from a how can we make this better with our roster standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the Ben Gamble shout is, I think, a pretty good one. I mean, realize, I think the challenge with him is he's going to bat 9th. I think the speed may play. And so I think that's going to be something where you can kind of look for matchups where that speed can play up a little bit. He's not that good, though. So batting 9th and not being that good, it's one of those things. I didn't go after him at all this week just because I just, that just wasn't on my radar. I was going after a lot of Giants, at Coors, so I was getting like Alex Dickerson or whoever. So I don't know. I mean, the Braun thing for me, I actually have him in a couple leagues. I dropped him. I moved on. It just seems like he hasn't been right from the get-go. He's not playing consistently, even though there is the spot in the lineup for him. And so at this point in time, unless you're, again, and I just think I dropped him in 12s. Like, unless you're an elite level talent, or I feel like you're a critical part of the path moving forward, then if you're going on the IL, then you're gone. Then you're not on my team anymore, right? Like Tim Anderson, keeping him on the team, hoping, although, a groin injury, like with his stolen bases that you're relying on, it's really hard to overcome. But, that's an example where like Tim Anderson's going to stay on my teams, but Ryan Braun, is a type of guy in a 12 at least that I'm going to move on from, just because I think I can get that production elsewhere. Like it may not be as easy, but, the stolen bases, I feel like I might be able to cobble together. Maybe it's Ben Gamble in a nice week where he's got a good matchup. The power, I certainly feel like there's opportunities, especially with everybody getting injured and sick. I mean, there's going to be guys who kind of come out of nowhere to provide value. So I think the key is just, is do the best you can. And if you're even kind of questioning it, it's kind of like I kind of lean towards dropping. It was like last week. I've dropped Verlander, like it's like, yeah, he could be back in 4 or 5 weeks, but it's roster spots are so precious right now in NFBC, at least, where you only have 7 and there's no IL. So if you're in a different league, it's a little bit of a different situation. So obviously that's where league settings come into play.
Yeah, no, I've been doing the thing this last week. Really, I used to like be able to stash a guy here. Like I picked up Jared Kalenic last week thinking, okay, he's going to be up probably in the next week or two. I'll get him cheap. Now I'm sitting there going, still don't want to drop him yet, but it's getting real close. But I dropped Braun, I dropped Dubon, and listeners of the show know those are some of my boys. But it's a different animal this year because trying to fill roster spots with guys you're waiting for, you need live bodies. And with this situation, you have Ben Gamble, Logan Morrison's going to run into the DH. So if you're in a super deep league on the right week, they're in play. But there's not much even looking at their taxi squad, like Keon Broxton, a flash from the past, is the other option there. So the Brewers taking a big hit this week, losing Locane and Braun, but it is what it is. And we'll head to the New York Mets, who had some reporting. They went full TMZ this morning, just blurting out news, making things sound like the worst case scenario. When in reality, Yoenis Cespedes just left and said, "Peace, I'm out. Like I'm opting out. I'll see you guys later." So Cespedes out for the rest of the year. When you look at the Mets, it's another team that's just not the most loaded in situations. It might be more playing time for Dom Smith. But other than that, nothing really stands out. I guess it basically locks in Dom Smith and J.D. Davis. Do you have anything else on what the Cespedes opting out does?
Not really. I think that's a good call. And I think Dom Smith is a little bit of an underrated hitter. Although he was gone in, I think, all my mains, or at least close to all my mains. Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. Again, like with all the players who are opting out, I give them credit. If they don't feel safe, or I think Cespedes said that he had a family member who had an immunocompromised condition, or who had a condition that made them more susceptible to severe symptoms under COVID-19, and he just didn't feel safe after what's been taking place. And I give a guy all the credit in the world if they make that decision for their family. I think that's great, and that's more power to him for doing that. With the Mets, obviously, I've been off and on Twitter. I've just been trying to track news. I've been out with my family, so I don't have all the details, but I know that it sounds like it was just, pretty poor handling from a PR perspective. And again, like there's already like the things about how, just kind of trying to undermine his character and stuff like that are peeping out, which is always unfortunate, I think, to see. So kudos to Cespedes for making the best decision for him and his family. As a fantasy, from fantasy baseball perspective, we move on, we adapt, we try to do the best with what we can.
Yep, no doubt about it. Quick one here, Strasburg, just for people that are hanging on to Strasburg. He's just throwing off flat ground. He might throw another bullpen on Wednesday. It sounds like it's a few more weeks to get regular Strauss back. It's hard not to hold on to Strasburg, knowing he is coming back with Toby. Is there like any little inkling in your head saying, if I find something else, we're dropping Strasburg?
Oh man, Strauss has been the guy that's hurt me the most. Probably, I have him in one of my mains. Him and Jacob deGrom, and then in my 12-team higher stakes league, I have him and Verlander to front my rotation, with Greinke as the third ace there. So still holding it together. But with Strasburg, I don't know. You probably have more recent news than me. What I read was a little bit more encouraging, that he threw a bullpen, I think today or yesterday, that he's going to throw one more and then he's likely to start. I don't know how long he'll go, but they seem to think that he wouldn't need the same type of kind of live hitter experience, they felt, as maybe some other starting pitchers would go. I don't know if he'll go the full game, but what this might actually do is what I'm thinking about just based on what I'm seeing. If his bullpen's on Wednesday, I think chances are he pitches on Monday of next week. Because I think they have Thursday off. I think they just have 2 games this first part. So they have Tuesday, Wednesday. So I think what's going to happen is Scherzer's going to pitch on one day, more rest than usual on Tuesday. And then I think they'll have Corbin go on Thursday, Sanchez on Friday, and then maybe
your boy on Saturday.
And then what's that?
Your boy on Saturday.
Voth maybe on Saturday. I'm not totally sure about that. But then Scherzer Sunday, Strasburg Monday. I think that's what might make sense. And so I don't feel too bad about the news, especially after reading last week about like the numbness and all that stuff. So I feel okay because I think when Strauss comes back and he pitches, I mean, he pitched really well in the preseason. And so I think we still have the chance to get, some goodness out of him the rest of the way. So I'm a little bit more confident, I guess, in him just because he is an ace. He's been there before. So maybe I'm a little bit more confident, but I may not have the most updated news on that as you do.
The most update that I've seen that got me to put this on the outline is he threw a bullpen session, a 31-pitch bullpen session on Sunday. And then he's going to pitch another bullpen session on Wednesday, assuming that's about 50. Let's just go with that. Which means if he pitched on Monday, like you're saying, he's good for 70 to 75. So it'll be one more start after that before he's ramped up. So either the end of the following week or the following, like week 5, I guess, or just 4, whatever that is. So he's probably about another week or 2 from being full go, assuming there's no setbacks. That's what we're looking for right now. So that's that.
Yeah, and with 75 pitches, he can get through 8 innings pretty easy, I think.
With him, with some of those teams in the East, no problem. Give him the Orioles, we're good. Actually, the Orioles are beating everybody. Sorry, Alex Fast.
I know. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is we're getting all these. Every team is good at hitting for a little while. Remember last year when the Marlins were like elite for like a month there, where Cooper and Anderson and all these guys were hitting. So it's like we're just getting these waves, and that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. And and then there's a lot of batters who are talking about how they're just having a really hard time getting into it. I heard Bregman talking about that. The A's have obviously struggled, some of their key guys. So we'll see. Should be fun rest of the way.
Just a quick one here for you. Chris Bryant and Joey Votto have been out of the lineup the last couple of days. They reported themselves feeling symptoms, but no positive tests. It's just they're following kind of what Moustakas did. He was back a few days later. It's a minimum of 3 days, so it's one of those. They might miss Monday. They could be back Tuesday. What I'm asking you, if we hear nothing on Monday, are you putting them in your lineups?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, we've seen how these extend, and I think it's really difficult because with the testing, there's like the rapid test that they do, but the results aren't as reliable as the nasal swab tests, but those ones take longer for them to get the results back. And so I think they were saying, the beat writers were saying that it's normally 2 to 3 days when something like this has happened in the past. Yep. And so I think, again, like it all depends on your situation. A lot of people won't have a better option. And you just got to weigh, okay, if I think that there's a 50% chance that they play 3 out of the 4 games, and then there's a 75% chance they play 2 out of that, what makes more sense, that or whoever else I have to put in there? So I think those are just the calculations that we have to get I don't know if comfortable is the right word with, but those are the types of calculations we have to make.
That's our 2020. That's our 2020 calculations. That's just what we're going to call them. It's the 2020. For those that didn't notice over the weekend, Ozzie Albies, he didn't play on Friday and he didn't play on Sunday because he's nursing a wrist injury, a lingering wrist soreness. They say they're just kind of taking it easy. Doesn't need an MRI. They're taking it cautious. He played on Saturday, like I said, but didn't play Friday. Didn't play Sunday. Are you comfortable playing Albies this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm planning on having him in there. He did play Saturday. I think he got a couple hits. Drove in a run, I want to say. Maybe that's a fact checkable thing. So it looks like they're just giving him maybe a little bit of extra rest, give him this additional day. So I'm hoping that he's going to be in there. But if he's not, then you just gotta do what you can.
Yeah, if we see on Monday he's not in the lineup and it's before lock, you might consider making changes there. Just going to throw that out there. Another guy to do the same thing with before lock on Monday, Josh Donaldson left Friday's game with a calf injury. This is an injury we've seen before with Donaldson, and he didn't play Saturday or Sunday. They say he's day-to-day, nothing too serious. We've heard this before with Donaldson, but I'm kind of nervous because this is kind of a thing we've seen with Donaldson before. If he's in the lineup Monday, obviously you play him. If he's not in the lineup Monday, what's your thoughts on Josh Donaldson?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. I mean, I think the challenge for me with this one is he's had this before. It's been a nagging injury. The Twins will obviously know that, and they want to keep him healthy. They also look really, really good. And so while he's an important part of that lineup, I wouldn't say that he's essential for their success. And so I would think that they're going to give him a little bit of extra time on this. So I'm not necessarily banking on him being in there at least the first half of the week. If he's in the lineup there on Monday, then I think that's really exciting. But I think they're going to be super cautious with this one. And I think they signed him for 2 or 3 years. So, it's a long-term investment for them.
Yeah.
4 years.
It was 3 or 4. Yeah.
3 or 4. Yeah.
So they want him locked down for a little while. There's no doubt about it.
I wish I had my Twins hat right now. Look at this. I buzz my hair, Bubba. Look at it. It's all not quite as short as you.
They come join the party.
Man, I walk. My children said that I look like I was 18 years old.
They're what they need. They're flattering you so well.
I know. Well, I'm just kidding, because when you ask a child who's their age how old they think you are, they're like 8.
18's a long ways away for them. Long ways away. Eduardo Rodriguez done for the season. For those keeping track at home, he was already having on the IL. He's done for the year, so you can let him go, and hopefully everything says he'll recover fine. Hopefully we see him next year, and that's good. You mentioned Tim Anderson earlier. He's on the IL with a groin injury. The severity of that I have not seen yet. That is it sucks. On more levels, you obviously have him, which stinks, but he's fun to watch. He's a great table setter in that offense. You just got to kind of sit and wait, right? There's nothing you can do with Tim Anderson.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I was going to tweet this out, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be taken the right way or not. But I think this highlights for me, like Anderson and a couple other things just highlight for me, like, well, we all want to talk about like how we're skilled drafters and how, we make the right drafts and da-da-da-da. I mean, luck plays such a factor. So in my main event that's doing really well right now, I had the 3rd pick in the draft, and I ended up getting Garrett Cole. If I didn't get Garrett Cole, I was going to draft Justin Verlander, right? So if I would say my chances of getting Cole were probably like 33% or something like that. So I got super lucky there. Coming back around, I had plotted out all the picks that I wanted to make in different spots. Coming around after that, I was going to go Tim Anderson and then Lance Lynn. But there was a little bit of a starting pitcher run there in that round. So I went Lynn, hoping that Anderson was going to get to me at 63. This was picks 58 and 63. Anderson got picked on the turn before I went. And so I got Eloy Jimenez instead. And so it just shows you like how a season can change dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
Not based on who I wanted to draft or who I was expecting to draft, but just because those are the breaks, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to highlight that because, a lot of my teams are doing well right now, and that's great. And people have said really nice things, which is great, but and I really appreciate that. But it's also like, there's a lot of luck that's involved too. Half of it is building the team, but it's also having those types of breaks go your way in the draft room. So don't take it too hard if your team isn't doing so well, or if you didn't get those breaks. Things could easily be very different.
Yeah, and a couple of things to hit on there is you mentioned a good thing. It's just kind of sometimes the draft breaks different ways. It didn't mean you didn't know what you're doing. Like you had targets that someone else liked as well. I mentioned that when I did one of my both of them, but one specifically, my listener leagues, I have never been sniped so much in my life. It's like you can tell they listen to the show because they were literally, Bubba's pick's coming up. We're going to go grab these guys now before he can. And it happened all draft long. I was just like, this sucks. But that was kind of a good thing. And then it's not a long season, but we still have a long ways to go. And categories are so tight, it could turn quick if you had a slow start. So don't start going crazy yet, because literally the league leader in homers has like 5. There's like guys with 2 stolen bases. It's one hot week, and you could turn things around in a hurry. So yeah, don't go going crazy.
Absolutely. And I think one good thing too, I think this is really important if you're drafting a lot of different teams, is no matter how much you like a guy, you have to diversify. No matter how much you like a guy can still get hurt. And that was one thing, like heading into drafts, I was like, I'm going to get all of the JT Realmuto, right? I love JT. I thought he was undervalued, even though he was going high up in drafts. I really wanted to get him. I only ended up getting 2 out of 4 of him in my really important draft and my main events. And the reason why was because it was actually Phil Dussault had a tweet where he was just talking about kind of his approach in that nature. And it wasn't just that. I had thought about it before, but I was also like, it's right, because you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. No matter how sure you are that a player is either going to be good or healthy, you got to diversify and make sure that that all of your teams aren't reliant on the same players to be successful.
Yep, makes a ton of sense. It's like stocks, diversify. So you
don't want to bury roster construction.
The idea of the rabbit. Don't put all your eggs in the stolen base basket, then you get screwed. It's very simple.
Especially when they're not good at baseball.
I'm going to stop there. Danny Santana, a guy that I know we talked a lot about in the preseason. He's had a rough start to the year. He was missing time with a sore right arm. Now he's on the IL. So it got bad enough.
Put him on the IL.
He went on today, retroactive July 30th, so he's probably out just for this week, give or take. He hasn't played since Tuesday. They just wanted to open up a spot, I guess, and get Nick Solak already has outfield eligibility in teams with leagues with 4 games, so that's a big plus already. He's real close to a couple other spots. But Santana's on the IL with this arm soreness. I'd say you probably write it out this week, but if you get some more bad news, is he a guy worth dropping? He's off to a really rough start.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just try to figure out what's going on with this week, and if he's still on the IL, I think he's not good enough. He's brawnish, right? Yeah, he's a guy who, he's got that position flexibility, but you got him partially for the speed, partially for kind of the whole package. And I think a lot of the questions you got to ask with yourself, these guys, is like, when they come back, how healthy are they going to be? And that's my thing with a lot of like COVID guys is it's just like, like Sandy Alcantara. I love Sandy Alcantara. I think he's going to be great. He had a dominant start, but I dropped him in most of my leagues, or I tried to drop him. I feel like I tried to drop him in a 15-termer and for some reason he didn't go. Maybe all my other guys were taken. But, for that, so, it's just, you just don't know how they're going to respond. Right. Like, and so I just think you gotta be willing to move on if they're not special players.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And that makes a ton of sense there. And obviously for people listening, this is in like leagues with no injury list. If you have an IL, sure, throw them on there. Yeah. But you mentioned it's tougher because there's really no minor league rehab stints. Like sure, Juan Soto's down there in he's rehabbing technically with the taxi squad, but you don't see a lot of guys doing that right now. When they're ready, they hop on back in. So keep that in mind. This one's kind of good for those that have hung on to him. Jesus Luzardo, he pitched pretty well out of the bullpen the other night for the A's, and he's going to be in the rotation now. He threw 67 pitches in relief over the weekend, which was really strong, actually, 67 pitches, which means he should be good to go for 85-ish, give or take, you'd think, going into his start this week. So people that went heavy on Luzardo, it's go time.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, and I think he's looked pretty good. He's among the CSW leaders, I know. Like, I don't think he's like top 10, but I want to say he's like top 25 overall for pitchers, around 33%, I want to say. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I was looking at it this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's good. I think the A's are good. It's a great ballpark. Everything about that situation is ideal. And I think one of the things is people who invested in him, I think you're going to see, as long as he stays healthy, you're going to feel pretty good about that investment, because I think we underestimated the amount of injury, and issues that we were maybe going to see happening this year. And so the fact that he has missed the first couple weeks, if he's going in week 3, you're still going to get some solid run out of him. And I think he's going to be a really good pitcher. And so hopefully your team has been able to kind of string it along enough where this little boost will help push you forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's a big boost for your team if you took the gamble on him early and it paid off. Last one I'm going to mention here is Marcus Stroman threw 4 innings simulated game. Then he went through fielding practice and he was good to go. Like the reports are, he went full tilt was the word. He was good to go. No timetable for his return. He tore his calf in summer camp. So we don't know when he's coming back. But the reason I wanted to mention it is a lot of people probably gave up on him. So if he's out there, if you have room, you could add him, put him on the IL, but maybe someone next weekend to keep in mind. You could maybe sneak in cheap a week before if you have the roster space. I just wanted to bring him up because he's getting closer, and a guy like Stroman compared to some other guys on the waiver wire, there's a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, guys on the waiver wire who are going for $100+ in FAAB is fairly remarkable.
Yeah, just wait, guys. After we talk closers here, which is going to be depressing enough, we'll talk FAAB bids, and that'll make you just want to go, wow, just wow.
I'm hoping I don't fall asleep. I'm exhausted.
Let's hope not. We'll run through this.
You won't fall asleep. I won't fall asleep. Our viewers will not fall asleep, because you want to know something. We're full of energy. We're engaging you throughout the evening in some of the most dynamic fantasy baseball discussions you are going to see.
Literally,
the world.
Literally. So we're going to talk closers, because it seems like either they've been horrible or they've been getting hurt. There's not very many safe spaces out there. Like, this is a safe space with us, but out there, not many.
It is a safe space.
So keep that in mind. But I'm going to use, and you can use whatever you want. I don't know what you're using, Toby, but I put a link to the closers charts that Greg Jewett has up. It has a nice kind of who's in, guys coming up. He updates it all the time with like guys that have bad outings and different deals to keep you going on. That's a resource I've been using forever. Greg's been on the bench with Bubba before talking about closers. There's tons of different references you guys can use for that. But we're just going to go off of that, and I think I have all of them here.
This segment is called Bullpen Disasters in the Outline. By the way, for those of you who are paying attention. You know, you don't come here for, challenges or troubles. You come here for disasters. We're either talking euphoria here or we're talking disasters.
Yeah,
the euphoria section is later.
Yeah, later. I used to never make it a point when I checked box scores. The first thing was never who got the save and who blew the save. That seems to be what I've done the last 2 nights. So that's been really exciting. That's how bad it is. But we're just going to start. Hope that I hit them all. We're going to start with the Rockies. It starts in Coors. Wade Davis to the IL. Scott Oberg pretty much done for the season. So Jairo Diaz was popular. We're going to talk about him coming up. Is he the guy that you would pick, or is it Carlos Estevez? Anybody else that stands out to you in Colorado, or is it Diaz?
It's definitely Diaz for me. I think Diaz, I normally shy away from folks in Coors, but Diaz has been, I guess I won't call him great. He's got 91 innings in his career, 4.04 ERA. But the things I like to see, 2019, 14.3% swinging strike rate. This year so far, 15.5% swinging strike rate. 17.9% K- walk rate last year, 31.6% this year. It's obviously early, but I think he does a lot of the things that I want to see. And so I was in on him. I don't want to spend big dollars in FAAB on closers this year. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous because you need them, but I'd rather go with the bulk approach, of just having a bunch of guys with maybe a little and then lucking out and getting one of those guys to kind of move forward with the gig. That's been kind of my approach. So he was my high bid in some leagues, over $100, like 114 and 109 in a couple leagues. Really do like him a lot. I think he's good. He's going to be the guy that has the job. I think he's gotten the job towards the end of last year. He had the job. I think before he was injured, maybe towards the very end of the year. So I think it's definitely his job. I put in a 20-team dynasty league where there's just very little on the waiver wire. I put in a $385 bid and I got him. So I'm confident. And also in TGFBI, I had a $109 uncontested bid where I got him. So, I'm big. I'm a fan. I think of all the Rockies' arms in that bullpen, including Oberg, he's the guy that I would like to have job. And I think he's going to get it. And the Rockies are going to get save opportunities, and I think he'll be serviceable for the rest of the year.
Yeah, Jairo Diaz went for as high as 541 for as low as 9 across NFBC. So all over the board, but many feel like he's the guy. It makes sense. $9, crazy time. But like you said, closers are going for some primo money. Let's talk Pittsburgh Pirates. Some closers that went last week for them: Birdie and Crick. Crick goes to the IL. Birdie has looked great, but we know he's not pitching on back-to-backs, which will lead to save opportunities in Pittsburgh if you really want to play the crazy game, which we are playing it in 2020. That's just the long and short of it. Like I said last week, I rostered Buck Farmer this week, and he gave me like 3 or 4 shutout innings. So it's just that's where we're at right now. It's the world we live in. So one of these guys on Pittsburgh could be interesting. You have Michael Feliz. Keona Kella is active, and so he'll be rejoining the team shortly. Is there anybody else on Pittsburgh you want, or is it just Birdie and you're staying away?
It's pretty much Birdie, I think. It was interesting today to see usage. He hasn't pitched in a few days, And today they would have had opportunities to do it in extra innings and they didn't pitch him. So what it tells me is they really are saving him for those type of save, chance / close it out opportunities. And not to be mean to the Pirates, I mean, I actually dig what the Pirates pitchers are doing. Not all of them, but I think what they're doing from just a pitch mix and like systemic perspective is really good. I think we've seen some guys like Steven Brault today, who's taken a step forward, maybe not the volume that you necessarily want to see, but they're doing the right things with their pitchers. So I like that a lot. So Birdie's kind of the guy I want. The bullpen's really been shambles outside of that. I think maybe Ricardo Rodriguez, he had a blow up, I think, in his first outing, but I think he's been pretty good since then. He might be the other guy. Kayla obviously coming back, but I think he's a ways out, and they're probably going to try to trade him since he's a free agent, after this year. And so for me, I think Birdie's the guy. I don't really want anybody else because I don't think they're going to get a lot of back-to-back save opportunities.
Yep, 100% with you. I got a lot of Birdie last week, and I'm pretty happy with that. So we're just going to ride from there. Chicago Cubs, Craig Kimbrell. My God, my goodness.
I haven't been one league.
Well, there was reason to be optimistic a little bit, but at the same time, it has just been downright dreadful. Like, real quick, before we even talk about replacements, is he droppable for you?
I didn't drop him in my 15-team main event that I have him in. I think I just wanted to.
12-team league. Would you drop in a 12-team league?
Probably, depending on what the other options are. I mean, look, the velo is still pretty good. He's getting destroyed, but I think a lot of it is just that he's just trying to get it over the plate at this point. So let's see, maybe when he gets out of that, main role, maybe he'll get a couple innings under his belt. Because the thing is, like, the reason why I drafted him, he was the last closer that went in kind of the guaranteed closer echelon. He went pretty late there. And that's something, like having access to that job is something. And while he hasn't been good for an extended period of time now, like, again, the velocity is still good. The swinging strike rate's still good. It's the walk rate that's challenging. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I should have dropped him, but I held on to him for one more week just to see what happens.
And then the kind of options you're hearing thrown around is Jeremy Jeffress, Rowan Wick. Those are the two main ones. Wick got a save the other day. Jeffress has a save as well. I'm leaning Jeremy Jeffress, the guy we've seen do it before. Had a rough go towards the end of Milwaukee, but the stuff's there. We've seen kind of a rejuvenation possibly with him. I'm going the Jeffress route. Do you have any thoughts on the Chicago backup plan?
I was in on Wick. I don't think Jeffress is good. He had a really good season in 2018. But 5.02 ERA with a 1.37 WHIP. Last year in 2017, it was a 4.68 ERA with a 1.64 WHIP. I'm going to guess that his velo was probably up that 1 year. Let's take a look and see if that's what was happening. So 2018, his velo was 96.2 miles per hour. So in his good year, he had his highest velo since 2016. Last year was 94.4. This year it's 92.5. This is something that I want to emphasize because I think we're seeing it across the league.
Yep.
Velocity is absolutely everything in the bullpen. Yep. I think it is absolutely everything. When you look at Hansel Robles, he is struggling because he's down 3 miles per hour. It's not like his stuff got quote unquote worse. He was super good at the end of last year because he was throwing the ball harder than he ever had before. It played up his changeup. It was harder to hit. Like, it's all that. And that's why I keep on harping on the Nick Anderson thing. He's gotten away with it so far, but his velo's down at 94.5. That is not special. It's very different than that 96 velo. So I'd be monitoring that velocity reading for so many different guys. That's why I went after Kyle Freeland so hard, is because he has his highest velo that he's had on record, 92.8 on his four-seam fastball this year. And it's just like velocity is so critical to making everything work for these guys. And so with Wick, his velo is down a little bit, but he's still over 95. I don't like him. His curveball, which is kind of his go-to breaking pitch, is not a swing and miss pitch. His fastball actually has the highest swinging strike rate. He's not your typical closer, but I got him, I think, for $67. And so I think he should be the guy, but whether or not they do that, I really don't know, because he's a lefty. Maybe they want him to go up against in lefty matchups. Who knows? But I think whatever happens, the Cubs closing situation is probably going to be a shit show for the rest of the season. They have garbage in that bullpen from a skills perspective.
It's very bad, and that's kind of why Wick, I figure he'll be more of the lefty matchup situation. So he might get a few saves here and there. I think they go Jeffers because of the righty deal, like what we're just seeing with Kimbrel kind of walking into that scenario. That's where I was leaning in that mix there. Let's go to the Mets now. A guy I know we were both, at least I was for sure. I think you were as well, with Edwin Diaz. We were looking for that bounce back season, and it's not happening. It's got like each outing you get kind of hope, and then it just blows up again. So it's been really, really ugly. You have Seth Lugo back there, who I still feel they want to put in the right situations to maybe go more than an inning here and there. He might, get some saves, but I think they want to use him in different scenarios. You have the Betances, who's been just as well, not as bad, but pretty close as bad as Diaz. And then there's Jurius Familia sitting there. Whew. I don't even know what to go with the Mets. I would just get Lugo to have him. We talked about drafting Lugo to start the season off, but to back up Diaz for saves, I guess you could throw a buck on Familia and see what happens, because Betances has been just as bad. But what do you see in New York?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mess, right? Everybody's been pitching really poorly. For me, I put a couple of conditional bids on Familia. I just think, obviously he has the quote unquote experience, but he's also the only guy who's pitched decently. It sounds like he's had one poor outing, but he's pitched okay. From a skills perspective, 16.1% swinging strike rate. The walks are always going to be an issue, although they haven't necessarily been an issue this year. He's been unlucky. He's got a 50% strand rate. Obviously, it's like 3 innings. So I put in for Familia. I think Lugo, they've had different opportunities to kind of put him in the closer role, and they never really have. Betances, the velo is down considerably, and he hasn't been pitching well. So just seems like process of elimination, Jurius Familia was the guy to go for. But again, I didn't go in heavy on anybody here. All
right, the Cincinnati Reds, Raziel Iglesias, a guy who I've been a fan of every year because he eats up innings, gets you ratio, like strikeouts, gets you more, like he's one of the more consistent year after year 25+ save guys. He was in Alex Fast breakdown article on all that stuff. He's had a rocky start to it as well. It's a common theme tonight, folks. So I'm not saying they're yanking him yet. But you got like Michael Lorenzen, who can just throw straight cheddar, and he's got that closer personality there. Amir Garrett, sneaky nice from the left side. I'm not saying they're going to take Iglesias out just yet, but I think Lorenzen's worth a bid here and there. Are you interested in anything in Cincinnati?
Not really. I had some conditional bids before today's game. I had some conditional bids on Lucas Sims, just because he's been pitching so well. He's had one of the better seasons just from a skills perspective of any reliever in the game. So I was in on him, but he kind of imploded earlier today a little bit. I mean, Castellanos was to blame for a lot of it, but he obviously got the runners on. So I took that bid away. TJ Anton is a guy who, this is like the first I've ever heard of him, but he's pitched really well from a skills perspective. He's a driveline guy. Again, the Reds seem to be kind of adapting to the more modern idea of the game, I think, in a lot of ways. Lorenzen's been really bad. He has been, 16.88 ERA, 1.88 whip. The skills aren't necessarily that bad. And so, again, if they're a smart team, they won't look at that. His strand rate is 0%. So he's allowed every single runner to score. So he could be next up in it, but I kind of steered clear. TJ Anton or Iglesias, I think he wrapped up the game. He got the win, I think, today. So, wasn't super interested in that. But those are some of the guys who I was thinking about more. So, just because they've been pitching so well.
All right. Just for those worried about Kirby Yates, it hasn't been pretty, but he said it's mechanics. He already knows what it is. He's going to work on fixing it. Keep that in mind. Drew Pomeranz already picked up a save. You got Pagan there. Bullpen's very deep, so if they have problems, it's there, but Yates should be okay.
I wonder if Yates is down in velo too. I'm going to check it out while you're introing.
The other thing is the Nationals, Daniel Hudson, I wanted him to start the year. Sean Doolittle's velo is disgusting. He's getting rocked. Huddy's the guy. So go get him wherever you can. Something in that regards. Let's go to the American League, where we'll start with the Angels. You mentioned Hansel Robles. The velocity's down. He's been a mess. Buttrey, they brought him in, and he had a rough Sunday. Kenyon Middleton came in, who closed for them in years past. It wasn't ideal for him. What are we doing in Anaheim?
Now, this is my sneaky closer of the week right here. I got him in a few places at least. I think Felix Pena is super interesting as the closer potentially there. The Anaheim bullpen has been god awful. Every single guy to a player has been bad. Robles has been awful. Buttrey, I don't even know if he's struck out a guy yet. He lost the opportunity this time. Middleton, it seems like, has been pretty good just from like a velocity perspective, but I also don't think he's actually pitched that well. Let me check just really quickly. He's been okay. His whip is 3. And there's nothing that's super jumping out at me there. Felix Pena has pitched very, very well. He's been doing multiple innings, but Joe Maddon was quoted as saying, I feel really comfortable with Felix Pena anywhere in a game, including closing. And after Buttrey blows this save today, I hopped on and I increased that bid for Felix Pena a little bit because I think whether it's an inning or 2, I think that he might be the guy who Maddon trusts the most. And I think Maddon, for all the weird credit he gets about thinking outside the box, I think he's a very traditional manager when it comes to closers. And I think it's clear that Robles, the velocity's gone. Like it's 3 miles per hour down. A 94 mile per hour fastball, that's everybody now, right? That's everybody throws 94 miles per hour. And so you're not special at that point in time. No offense, Hansel. I love you. You know that. But like, so for me, I would move away from Hansel. I didn't drop him again because I just didn't know what the usage was going to be. Like, Buttrey pitched today, but Robles blew up yesterday, so maybe they come back to him. I don't know. But Felix Pena is the guy that you could get for a couple dollars, and I think I really like him as a potential guy who could get saves, who is pitching very, very well right now.
Yeah, I used Pena a lot last year when he was in the opener role there with Anaheim. Very good stuff. In that one, the Houston Astros is a disaster. Everyone's hurt there. Osuna might be done for the year. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Ryan Presley is lined up to be the closer, but then they have a bunch of youngsters. Andre Scrub, Brandon Bailey, James Torres, Blake Taylor. It's Presley for me, but my goodness, it's a mess in Houston, Toby.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any investments over there, and it's just been, who knows that. I'm not necessarily investing, but I think Presley makes sense. I mean, even as a guy who, even if he doesn't pitch this week, if you can get him and just kind of have him in your lineup, just hanging out, because he's good enough to really be one of the most dominant closers in baseball when he's healthy, because he's been one of the most dominant relievers the last couple of years. So I think that's a really good, I think that's who I would go with in this particular scenario, though I'm not confident at all.
Another one that I'm not super confident in is the Texas Rangers, because Jose Leclerc's pretty much done for the year with his injuries on the 45-day IL. So, yeah, you can cross that one off. Jonathan Hernandez, Nick Goody have been the names of choice. Jesse Chavez and that look he's got going on. People are like, that's a long, long shot. But Edison Volquez is interesting. I've heard his name thrown around. I know Goody and Hernandez were the main targets this weekend. What are you doing in the Texas situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at today's game against the Giants, Hernandez pitched the 7th and the 8th, and he did really well. 2 innings, 4 Ks. I think he gave up a hit or a walk. But Volquez was there in the 9th. So it may be a committee. It may be maybe you watched the game. I'm not sure which hitters of the Giants were up in the 7th and 8th, but it may be a leverage situation where Hernandez is going to go up in the toughest spot. I don't really think there's much question about who the best arm in that bullpen is. I think Hernandez is pretty much that, like just from a stuff perspective. Their control is not good. He walks a lot of guys, but so did Jose Leclerc. Volquez. So if it's Volquez, I don't think he's going to last very long. He doesn't have the strikeout stuff anymore. He never really did, to be honest with you. So if it's him, it might just be like the kind of veteran thing, but Goody pitched in the 6th, I think yesterday or the day before. I think he pitched in the 6th again today. So I don't think it's him. He's been mediocre his whole career. I don't think anything stands out about him. So for me, it's Hernandez. He was a star of spring training, of summer camp. They seem to really like him. He pitched really well today. So he's the guy that I already had. I got him last week in places where I was looking for saves just because I felt like Leclerc was a little shaky. So I'm hoping that he gets a shot this week. We'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, I like Hernandez and Goody. I think Hernandez is a little more than Goody, but I like them both. Just they're going to usually get you some strikeouts and decent ratio. Like they're 2 good relievers, at least in that scenario where the mess that we're dealing with everywhere else. they can at least fill in for you. You know, if you're having starting pitching issues, if you just need guys to roster, I don't mind them as kind of relievers that might run into a save here and there. And if anything, maybe get you a win. We talked about relievers that could help you with ratios and sneak into some wins. Hernandez and Goody could kind of be those guys in that Texas bullpen that I don't mind taking a chance on. Just for everyone's knowledge, the Yankees, Aroldis Chapman cleared. He's coming back, so I guess another week or so he'll probably regain that job in New York. So just keep an eye on that. Ken Giles for the Jays. I think when we talked last week, he was pretty much done for the year. Now they're saying he might be back soon. I don't like the sounds of it to begin with. Anthony Bass was the guy that everyone picked up last week. You still an Anthony Bass guy if that's the option in Toronto?
Yeah, I think Bass is the guy there. I think Jordan Romano is an interesting backup, just because I think he's the more kind of traditional closer. I know Rob Silver has been touting him for a couple weeks. I definitely think he's a good snag. But I think Bass is the guy, and he can do it. He can do a fine job of doing that. In the league where I got Jairo Diaz, the 20-team dynasty, for $385, I put in the same bid for my sneaky plan was to put in a $385 bid for Anthony Bass, but he went for $507. And I had an $85 bid for Jordan Romano to put on my minor league roster because I can still put him in the minors. Got Jordan Romano, did not get Anthony Bass. So, but still, I think Bass is fine. Yeah.
All right. The Cleveland Indians, Brad Hand, he's getting it done kind of, but it's not pretty.
It just keeps going.
Yeah. It's not pretty. Nick Wittergren's been okay there, but everyone wants to talk James Karinchak. He saved a game the other night, looked filthy. We knew that going into the year that Karinchak was real close to being the guy. It was very, very cut and dry there. Do you think it's Karinchak going forward like some people do, or does Brad Hand still get the job?
It's a really good question. I mean, if anybody listened to the podcast, leading up to the season, me and you were both really off of Brad Hand because of that velo being down towards the end of last season. And that's another thing I'm going to hone in on is just velo at the end of the season. The increases towards the end of the season, the dips towards the end of the season. I think somebody do some research out there. It's probably already out there, but I think it makes a difference. So I'm just going to put that out there. But I think Tito is very loyal to his closers. So I don't think Karinchak has the job yet. I think Hand is going to get the opportunity again. But I think that they're losing faith in him. And I think that's for good reason. I don't think that Brad Hand at 90 to 91 is not the same Brad Hand that was at 93 to 94. He's a 2-pitch pitcher. When that velo goes down and you're a 2-pitch pitcher, it's just not the same. I mean, it's the same thing with Hansel. And even in the situations where he's gotten saves, Hand has looked relatively shaky. I think he had one clean one, but he had another one where the White Sox, I think, put a few runners on, or he gave up a run or something like that. So I think the writing's on the wall. I don't think it'll happen right off the bat, but I think Karinchak is a really nice ad. Yeah,
for the Baltimore Orioles, Cole Sulser. And if you would have told me before this past week who he was, I couldn't have told you. Really couldn't have, to be totally honest with you. But he now has 3 saves on the season and 4 appearances. He's got 2 saves of 2 innings or more. Today was a 2-inning save on Sunday. 2-inning save about a week ago against the Red Sox. A couple 1-inning outings. One he got blown up by the Yankees. One he shut down the Rays. He seems to be the guy in Baltimore. It's the Orioles, so it's never pretty, but they've been decent this year. I know I put a lot of bids on him. He went if we look overall on the FAAB result world, I know he was a popular name. He went as high as $4.10, as low as $1, went 138 leagues. What's your thoughts on Cole Sulser in Baltimore?
Yeah, I wasn't that interested in him. I didn't really put in any bins. I just, because he's on the Orioles, and the Orioles have been so shifty with their closers. Like they've never really stuck with a closer since this new regime came in. That I didn't really show interest, but I mean, 17% swinging strike rate. I mean, that's super good. A pretty nice K- walk rate there. So he looks fine. I know he blew the save, I think yesterday or the day before. So, that's why I just, unless it looks really perfect, I kind of shy away from that, from bullpens like the Orioles or the Giants. But sometimes that's to my own detriment, as you see with Trevor Gott. So.
The last one I'm going to talk about tonight, or we're going to talk about tonight, is the Mariners. Taylor Williams, he has a couple saves now for the Mariners. It's not Hirano. It's not anybody else we expected. Is Taylor Williams the guy going forward that you trust if you were going for Seattle?
No, not really. Again, I don't have any special knowledge or anything like that. But I think when Hirano comes back, he's going to be the guy. They have him on a 1-year deal. If he can pitch well when he gets back, and I know he's working towards that, if he pitches well in high leverage situations, I think their best case scenario for him is being able to move him to get something in return. And so for me, I'm not super interested, but again, people who snagged him last week, I know Matthew Davis has been a big fan of his and got a couple saves off of him this week. So kudos to folks who have kind of gone with him. But for me, I'm not super interested in him. All
right. We only went through like 15 teams. I think that's pretty much all of them for this week. So stay tuned next week for more bullpen disasters. Yeah, exactly. That's why I said take the guys that'll get you the ratios. Very simple stuff. Let's go to the FAAB results. We kind of joked around earlier how messed up it was, and it was wild. We got TGFBI. We got the page that shows pretty much everything that NFBC did as well. But Nick Madrigal, he was big. Christian Javier went. Eno Saris bought him for 211 in my league. Runner was 152. Rowan Wick went for a ton to Smata at 169. Like DeSclafani went for a lot. Nico Horner, Teoscar Hernandez, Nico Horner went for a 162. That one surprised me a bit.
Interesting.
Yeah, J.P. Crawford, Alec Mills a week after the 2-step that you grabbed him for. Taiwan Walker went for 101 in my league, but then a lot of other smaller bids here and there. What were some of the big bids in your league?
Who doesn't love Alec Mills? I mean, come on, guys. Like,
it made more sense when you took him a week early.
Well, I didn't get the 2-step, though. I got him for the good start against Cincinnati. We missed the 2-step. And it looks like we might miss this week.
We might too. Good point.
The St. Louis Cardinals, but he does get Pittsburgh. So I'm down for that. I'm super down for that. Knock on wood. You should knock on wood anytime Alec Mills is in the conversation. So in my league, in TGFBI, Christian Javier was the big one, 444, backup of 266. After that, Casey Mize went for 333, which is interesting. I know some people thought he was going to pitch on Sunday today, but Daniel Norris is back in the rotation. How did Norris pitch today? I did not have a chance to look into that, but because I'm not a big Norris fan. I just think that there's a lot of potential there, for him. So Casey Mize went, and then it was Jeremy Jeffress for 233, backup bid of 16. There was not a ton of bidding in my TGFBI. David Peterson went for 204. Chris Bubich went for 204. I got Tyler Chatwood for 143 with a 111 backup. I felt pretty good about that one. Karinchak went for 126. I got Jairo Diaz for 109 with no backup. I got Rowan Wick for 67 with a 17 backup. Those were all of them. A lot of the ones that you mentioned before, a lot of Giants, Donovan Solano, Evan Longoria, which I think is a really good pickup. He's been swinging the bat pretty well. Brandon Belt, Wilmer Flores, Hunter Pence, guys like that. So nothing, a couple really high bids, but I felt pretty good about leaving the draft with those guys. I actually don't really want Wick now that I got Jairo Diaz, but I got him. That's how it rolls sometimes.
Yeah, the guys I picked up this week, and it lets you know, guys, that I mentioned getting rid of like Braun and some others earlier. I got rid of Rugnan Odor. I picked up Donovan Solano for Rugnan Odor, $14, runner up 11. So I was pretty happy with that. I dropped Tyler Rogers, and there wasn't many Tyler Rogers fans bigger than me, but it's A, Kapler's a liar, and B, he has not looked good. So I got Nick Good.
He's gotten roughed up a couple times.
Roughed up. And one of them was that dumb second guy who started on second extra innings rule. That roughed him up good. But I got Nick Goody, and I wanted Hernandez, Goody second. I got Goody, so that's where that went. And then I got Victor Reyes for $8. No runner up. Go give me some steals and whatnot. So cool. Just put some cheapies out there because my high bids all went for a boatload. Like you mentioned, Jeremy Jeffress going for a ton in your league. He went for $15 on ours. That's why this is just like. Kyle Freeland went for 31 in ours. Dalton Varsho only 41. I just love looking about how different prices are. It just blows my freaking mind. That's why it's so hard to bid every week. It's just bananas. Like I mentioned, Javier only went for 211, but he went for like 4 something in yours. it's a good time. But any final takeaways from FAAB? Because I'm really curious to go look and see how much money people have left, because the first few weeks has been just mayhem. Like Smata, we love Smata, but now he's spent 139 on Teoscar, which is a good buy. But he spent 169 on Wick. Last week he spent like almost 300 on Alex Cobb. So he's down quite a bit now. I know that's just off the top of my head. Eno Saris went for broke this week. He spent about $500 or so. So it'll be interesting to see how much money certain people have going into the last few weeks.
For sure. Yeah, the strategy piece is interesting. I mean, I think the Jeffress Wick thing is a really interesting kind of side-by-side, just because I think it shows how you can kind of utilize probability in some of this. So like the question would be, and again, this isn't a criticism of anybody's bids or anything like that, but let's say, so you have Jeremy Jeffress who goes for a $223 bid, and then you have the Rowan Wick bid that I put in for 67. And again, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but the way that I think about that is, okay, is Jeffress between 3 and 4 times more likely to get the gig? You know, is he worth that like 3 to 4 times what Rowan Wick is, you know, in this particular scenario? If he gets the job and runs with it, yes. But just from a probabilities perspective, for me, I guess it's kind of like, you know, I don't know poker super well, but like from like thinking about pot odds, right? Like is the chance of getting of hitting on Jeffress 4 times that of hitting on Wick, essentially. Yeah. Like when you're looking at it from an investment perspective, you know, that's kind of how I think about a lot of these things. So even if it's like closer X has a 25% chance of getting the job and closer Y has a 50% chance of getting the job, and I think they have an equal chance of running it when they get it, but the 25% guy costs 1/10 of or 1/5 of the other guy, I'm always going to go with the lower bid, you know, because what it tells me is we don't know for sure who's going to get the job. There maybe isn't that much of a differentiation from a skills perspective. And so that's just kind of how I think about bids a lot of times, and why you won't see me oftentimes outside of 20-team dynasty leagues, you know, go with really high bids for closers.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I'm 100% with you on that. And that's why I think it's kind of interesting hearing different philosophies. We talk about it every week just to talk. Like, it's fun to talk about who got picked and who, like, the different prices. But I think one thing it leads to is it makes the discussion of strategy, which is very interesting. Like Vlad Sedler and you know, Scott Genstead, and like you listen to Scott and Jeff for years do it on Sunday nights because there's strategy involved. There's like, let people know the thought process of what took place, because we're not the only ones that look at the numbers and go, what in the world? Like, how did that go? And it differs between sizes of leagues. I know you just mentioned 20-team dynasty. We're talking 15-team TGFBI and FBC. The 12-team leagues, those prices get bananas. Like, it's all over the board, and there's different strategy in different ways. That's one of the reasons we talk about it the way we do. So something to keep in mind. Let's do listener questions, and we'll start with the one here in the chat before we get to the ones on Twitter. James asks, Benintendi droppable for Pence at Coors? He's tired of Tendi. Okay, I'm going to be before I give you the floor here. Pence has been horrific. He had a triple on Sunday, but he's been horrific. And I know Toby, one of the followers on Twitter, pointed out he's on the unlucky list, but he was unlucky for like a 272 slug, so that's still not good, not good at all. And he's been absolutely, like, watching him hit, he's lost. Like, the swing looks horrible. It is Coors Field, I get you, but Benny's been bad. But I think I'd still hold on to Benny. What about you, Toby?
Yeah, and then that's one of the things about those tweets is I put it in there is just because somebody's on the list doesn't mean they're good. It means they've been unlucky, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they've been good. And Pence has not been.
It's good. Just one piece of the puzzle.
I think, you know, look, Benintendi is not having a great start to the season, but I think it's Benintendi going away here. Number one, he's got a balanced profile. He generally hits for average. He generally steals bases. He's got a little bit of pop, and he bats generally against right-handers at the top of that lineup. That is a nice place to be. He's struggling to begin the season, but again, you know, all it takes is one hot week and we're in really good shape. So I think Benintendi, it's not even close with Pence.
My other thing would be is I have a feeling there's better options if you do want to drop Benintendi than Pence on your waiver wire. And those would be the discussions I'd be willing to have. So, because I'm not saying Ben that he's not droppable, but not for Hunter Pence. Andrew Matney asks, we'll start off with a jovial one here, Toby. Hey, Toby, why do you hate Mike Soroka, and when are you going to publicly apologize? Thanks. I'll hang up and listen off the air.
So Andrew is my partner in one of my mains, the one that's 4th overall right now. So he's allowed to give a little bit of shtick. You know, whenever you're drafting with somebody else, you know, you always have your discussions about like who your different guys are. And he really wanted us to take Soroka. I think we took Hendricks in this particular scenario instead of Soroka. Number one, because Hendricks has done this for a long time, and Hendricks was cheaper than Soroka was. Soroka, again, limiting contact management is something that I don't necessarily believe until I really see it happening. And I think Soroka may have that. But I also think that his strikeouts are limited because, yes, he has a good slider and he has a good changeup, but he doesn't have any pitches that he can throw for strikes and get swings and misses on. His sinker and his four seam have very high in-zone contact rates. His curveball has a very good, or slider has a very high in-zone contact rate for a slider. It's his changeup is the only pitch that he can really throw in the strike zone that gets whiffs, but he also can't throw it in the strike zone. His zone percentage is like 35%, which is probably on purpose, right? Because you're trying to get them to chase and make poor contact. So when I see a profile like that, I just see a very limited ceiling. And obviously he's pitched really well so far. And I'll just throw in this about Andrew Matney. He wanted us to draft Yoenis Cespedes at pick 250. So, you know, how about that? He also wanted us to pick Chris Paddock, and that's worked out for us so far. And without an implosion of the San Diego Padres bullpen, we would have gotten a win there too. So
yeah, that game against the Giants, he should have had that one.
Both of those games, right? Padres are supposed to have this stud bullpen, and they can't contain the Giants with 5
or Paddock games. Oh. So I told people on my DFS show, they're like, "Oh, but look at Paddock. Well, Paddock pitched great. It was the bullpen. It wasn't them." But Matt Leahy asks, "What do you think it would take for Edwin Rios to get regular at bats? Dude rakes when he's given the chance." I agree. He needs regular at bats. Maybe Mookie Betts' injury will get him some regular at bats. We don't know how long Mookie Betts is out. He might not be out at all. That could be simple. It's just the Dodgers. They're so deep. There's just so many spots for him, and he does rake. It's tough to say, but maybe they'll let Betts rest a couple days and give him a shot. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think a good comp for Edwin Rios is Kyle Lewis. I think Edwin Rios is kind of the Kyle Lewis of the National League without access to full-time playing time. So I think there's so many things to love about Rios. The barrel, like the way he hits the ball is just incredible. But again, like with Lewis, you know, you gotta, in order to have even a remotely decent batting average, you have to have incredibly high BABIP, which he will likely have a very high BABIP just because of how well he strikes the ball. But right now he's got a 30%. Right now he's got a 30% strikeout rate. It was 37.5% last year. His contact rate is actually pretty good. I mean, it's right in line with league average. He's got better plate discipline than Kyle Lewis does, so he's got those things going for him. So again, it's one of those situations where he could get on a hot streak and hit 5 home runs in a week and just be the talk of fantasy, and that's a very possible outcome. At the same time, he could go 0 for his next 15 with 8 strikeouts, and it also wouldn't be that surprising. And so maybe he'll end up in the middle, and I think the middle is probably like a 250 batting average with a decent amount of home runs. But again, like how many guys is he going to get into the lineup on a regular basis? I think he played the last 2 games, you know, so maybe with a Mookie Betts injury, something like that. But again, it's one of those things where as you're managing a lineup and you look at your lineup, you're like, okay, he's playing on Monday. And you're like, am I starting him? Am I putting him in that spot? You know,
he might not play again until Friday.
Exactly. And so those are questions that, like, obviously you have to make a decision on those guys sometimes, but I don't like having those guys on my team because it's just really tough.
How about he also asked with Cespedes opting out, we mentioned Dom Smith, JD Davis pretty much getting regular playing time. Are you in on Dom Smith getting as a play now with him getting regular playing time?
Yeah, I think he's good. I think he's a solid add in a 15-team league, maybe even a 12-team league. I think he gets the run for the most part. I don't know what they're going to do with lefties but I think he's going to get the plate appearances, and I think he's a pretty good hitter.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We have a few questions from at SMMS79. First off, he plays in a 10-teamer where pitching goes deep. Who is the guy that most folks are grabbing in deeper leagues that may surprise with shallow appeal? In other words, if you were in a 10-teamer, who is an ad other players might be sleeping on? So guys like 15-team league guys that are getting picked up now that in a 10-team league, he'd be sneaky for him.
All right. So the guys that I was targeting this week that were pitchers, which I didn't get most of them because the bids were so high. And I don't know whether that's me needing to adapt or just not being willing to pay that price for certain guys. But the guys that I was going after that were still around, I mean, Tyler Chatwood is one, where it seems like I think it was Alex Chamberlain was mentioning, he was much better in the second half last year too, from a walks perspective. So it seems like a longer term thing. And the walks were always the issue, right? There wasn't a lot of debate around the skill necessarily. So Chatwood is a guy that I was interested in. I was interested in Dobnak of the Twins, mostly because he has the Royals, I think, this week on Wednesday or Thursday. And then next week, he's got the Brewers and the Royals again, I think for a 2-step, which is really nice to have. But again, there's a day off in the middle there, and I'm just not sure whether he's going to go through with that. But Randy Dobnak would be one, not necessarily a guy who gets a ton of Ks, but I think from a wins and not even necessarily a whip perspective, because he walks a decent amount of guys. He's a guy. John Means of the Orioles. He's supposed to pitch against the Marlins this week. His velocity is up about 3 miles per hour. He was at 95.1 against the Yankees. CSW was very good. Swinging strike rate was very good. Got knocked around in the first inning, but after that, he settled down and was really good. So I got him in a few spots. I really like John Means as a guy who can contribute, and he's also going to have a not great, but not terrible 2-step next week. He pitches Wednesday this week. He should have the Phillies on Monday, I think, and the Nationals on Sunday, which, again, is not ideal because Soto will be back, but the Nats lineup isn't necessarily hitting on all cylinders right now. Another guy that I was after was Kyle Freeland. Again, the velocity is up. Freeland, guys have always had a tough time, except for last year, lining up Freeland. When he pitched in that 1 year, he just found a way. And this year he started off pretty well. From a CSW perspective, his pitch mix has changed a lot. He's only throwing 4-seamers really, and it's only about 25% of his pitches the other day. And so it sounds like he's doing something different. And he's got the Mariners on Thursday this week, although it is at home. It's not the Mariners, it's the Giants at home. I thought he had the Mariners on Friday. That's my bad. I'm sorry. I'm just going through here with my list. Asher Wojciechowski is another guy. Kind of liked him towards the end of last year. He actually pitched pretty well in his first start. So if he's got the right matchup, he's good. He's got some good breaking stuff. His CSW is close to 40%, which is no small feat. In his first start of the season, I don't think he's going to pitch this week, at least based on the schedule that I'm seeing. But in case he is, they have the Marlins, and then I think they have a team that's also not that great. Maybe it's the Red Sox, but the Red Sox don't scare me all that much, which I probably shouldn't say after today's game. And then maybe he's got a 2-step next week. So that's another guy that I was targeting. So those are some guys who generally what I do, and again, I did a PitchCon thing on this, but I look at swing and strike rate. I look at K- walk rate. I look at CSW. I look at those types of metrics to see which guys are kind of popping. And it's a very small sample size, but those are some of the guys that stood out for me.
Yeah, Chatwood, that increased cutter usage has been tremendous. That was talked about a lot here recently, and that's helped a ton. It helped you Darvish out to cut back on walks. So it could be something to use there. I like the Freeland call. A couple others that were also on my radar to take a look at. UC Kikuchi, the velocity is up big time. Changing that velo up and changing the pitch mix. And he added a cutter also. I know some guys are talking about that also. So Kikuchi is an interesting one to keep an eye on and probably take a gamble on at some point in your smaller league. And then if you just want to, you mentioned a lot of them, a couple others, I like what I've seen the first 2 times around from Peterson from the Mets. Sinker baller. He's one of their high prospect pitchers, decent strikeout stuff. I like what I've seen from him. So that's a guy to go for. And a guy we've talked about a lot on the show, and we'll talk about him briefly later, is Spencer Turnbull. He's still available in a lot of spots. another guy that he went in a lot of places now.
Out there.
Yeah, he went in. I just have the list here from just NFPC in general. He went in 34 more leagues this week. So in 10-team leagues, I'd imagine Turnbull's sitting there on the wire, so you can go have some fun with that as well.
Follow us on Twitter. Come on.
Yeah, that's it. No, exactly. Easy stuff. Easy game. I'm sorry. This one's gonna be a long one, so I'm sorry, SFMS. We got other questions for you. He says, if you want to go down a rabbit hole of pain, what's the hardest part of the season been so far? For him is losing 23% of that bats to the weekend with postponements. It's kind of like what we talked about before. What's been the hardest part so far?
FAAB. FAAB's been brutal. Outside of FAAB, I have a lot of JT Realmuto. I missed him for an entire week. My best main event team didn't have him for a whole week, so that was a little bit sad. I have a ton of Blue Jays. I have Teoscar Hernandez a bunch of places, so I didn't have him this week. I have a lot of Nationals, Starlin Castro on a bunch of teams, Howie Kendrick on a bunch of teams, Victor Robles on a bunch of teams. So yeah, I mean, missing out on those is tough, but in the same sense, I feel like we're all kind of in that boat. And so, just kind of work through it. So FAAB, I think, has just been the worst because there's just so many things that are changing and it's grueling. I have 10 FAAB leagues, I think, and it's not enjoyable. Yeah.
Yep. For me, it's been just losing guys and not having any way to fix it. That's been just ridiculous. It's tough, but hey, we're all dealing with it. We all make it work. Dave Petroziello asks, will Karinchak take over in Cleveland? I think we're kind of in agreement eventually. I agree with what your take on Tito is loyal, but it's only going to take a couple more mess ups for Karinchak to walk in there. Joe G 414, he asked, which outfielders, Austin Hayes, Shin-Soo Choo, Aaron Hicks, or Grichuk in a deep mixed roto league?
A lot of these are so team dependent. Those are very different players. So Grichuk is a power hitter who's going to hurt your average, probably help you in other places coming off an injury. So if you need power, then I would go with Grichuk. I think that's the important thing to think about this. That's the lens you got to be analyzing all of this stuff in. You have positional needs because you need to fill roster spots, and you have team needs, and it's early in the season, but you can start to see now where the weaknesses are. I have teams where I went super heavy starting pitching because my Ks are low, and so I think you have to look at it. So with Shin-Soo Choo, it's also schedule. Those guys are so close together that it's really about who has the better schedule. And who meets your team's needs, because all those guys are playing. So it's the Orioles with Austin Hayes have Miami, and then I think they have Boston, I want to say. Yep. Am I making that up? So Miami and Boston. So that's a pretty good hitting schedule for you to have, especially knowing that the Marlins, it sounds like most of their pitchers had COVID, and so that's going to be where they're hurt the most, according to Craig Mish. So that might be a good guy. I think that the Texas lineup, the Texas schedule is okay for this week. So you probably want to see how many left-handed pitchers, Shin-Soo Choo is probably going to go against. Grichuk should play every day as long as they're there. So that's what he's got going for him. And who is the last guy?
Aaron Hicks.
And then Aaron Hicks, the Yankees have a very good schedule.
Yeah. He's off to a very slow start, but I don't see that lasting for too much longer.
Yeah, they've got 8 games. So I might be tempted to lean towards Aaron Hicks in that particular scenario. But again, I don't have Hicks, and I haven't been monitoring the Yankees lineup super closely outside of making sure that my guys are in there.
He's hitting fifth most nights. He's in the middle of that lineup. He's just not hitting right now.
Yeah. I think this is the thing is these are the filters you should be running each of these types of ads through as you decide whether to draft them. Is who are the matchups? Does that give one guy a benefit over the others? Both in terms of the team and in terms of the pitchers that they're going up against, lefty righty splits, quality of opponent, for instance, something like that. What does your team need from a positional standpoint? You're all outfielders, so clearly that's the need. So what do you need? Power? Do you need speed? If it's speed, then maybe it's Hayes or Choo. If you need runs, maybe it's Hayes or Choo or Aaron Hicks. So just try and kind of think about it that way. So we won't give you a solid answer because it really depends on what the situation is.
Yeah, I like Hayes being on that Orioles team is actually swinging it well, plus playing in Camden. Some of those matchups in the East, I do like Hayes quite a bit leading off there. Hicks is the guy I'd go with, but I understand if you're skeptical because of the way he's been playing. Shorts on sports, he asked, we already answered this, but with Ozuna potentially being shut down for the Astros, do you see Presley or Abreu stepping in? We're on Team Presley there with not much else to go off of. At Fantasy Capper asks, thoughts on Hanser Alberto? His exit velocity data isn't great, but K rate is nice. Bank on solid average. We've talked about him before. I have him starting for me on TGFBI, like on the regular. I think he's very, very solid. I got no problem using Hanser Alberto. He crushes lefties and he hits righties decently. If you're looking for a guy just to get at bats, get on base, I got no problem with Hanser.
Yeah, I think you're right. And he's got second, third base eligibility, so there's some flexibility there. But again, don't expect power. You're going to be hurt by power. You're not really going to get much speed from him either. So just factor that in. I don't think he's a guy you want in there consistently because you're going to fall behind in other categories. Leland
Taglieri asks, do you think if Fletcher struggles, which he's been playing pretty darn good, do you think Luis Rengifo can hit at the top of the order for the Angels?
I don't know. I've always liked Rengifo because I think he does a lot of good things. Fletcher's obviously there. It's a short season, so it's not necessarily something that I would be banking on. And I don't think either of them is really a very good fantasy player. So,
and the other question he had was do you think Adele comes up or Carlson or what other prospects are you looking to go? Like I mentioned Jared Kalenic, I think should be up any day. If they're holding them back much longer, it's just foolish talking stuff. But anybody you're looking to?
Dylan Carlson, I think, is going to come up. I'm not a big Joe Adele fan at this point in time. I just think that there's too much swing and miss. Like, I think I always say things with that before I look, just relying on my memory, which is not good. But I think there's still too much swing and miss in his game. So AAA last year, 32.6% strikeout rate. His projected strikeout rate via Steamer is 28.6%. So I just think there's more to do there. And so I don't think he's that good. Then again, like if he hits 250, steals some bags and hits some homers, that can be super helpful. So I'm not necessarily looking after him. But again, it's all league dependent because it's like if you have 7 slots and no IL, then carrying around a guy like Joe Adele, who you're not sure is going to be really good, taking up a spot is really difficult to do. Whereas if you have 10 bench spots, then it's a lot easier to do. So I just say, depending on what your league looks like, to make the decision accordingly.
Yep, no doubt about it. And speaking of Adele, just keep in mind Mike Trout will be back on Tuesday. They play in Seattle or something. So his wife gave birth to their child. He took a couple of days off. He will be back on Tuesday. So nothing to worry about on that realm.
He almost got the name right. Beckham. My youngest name is Beckett.
Oh, there you go. I can't remember who some player tweeted it out that said they're already afraid to face him because his initials are BAT.
Yeah.
It's so good. So good. Yeah. But all right, that'll wrap us up this week. Toby, final thoughts on the craziness that has ensued.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing craziness. And I think the best thing to do is just realize that we're all experiencing it. There may be varying degrees of experiencing it right now among different teams that you have or different teams in general. But over the course of the season, the chances are, although it's a short season, so it's less likely than if it was longer, that most of that will hopefully even out and that your teams will not be disproportionately impacted by the injuries, but we have no control over that. So try to create a flexible, adaptable, balanced team as much as possible that is able to withstand, some of the bumps that you're getting. And then I think FAAB strategy is super interesting. I'm fortunate because a lot of my teams are doing well. And so I've kind of been sitting back and going after guys strategically and trying to hold on to that FAAB towards the end where hopefully I can, be a little bit more effective towards the end and getting the guys that I want, especially as we know more about players, like we know more about pitchers or, people get a little bit more impatient and they start dropping guys that maybe the skills are good, but the results have been bad. So that's one strategy. But again, like we're missing out on chances to get guys right now. So it's just really interesting to see everything unfold. Try to embrace it, try to enjoy it, as much as you can. And let's hope that when we have our next show on Monday, we still have some baseball to talk about, and hopefully the protocols are stronger than they were initially, and that players are staying safe and healthy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've gotten to the point now where I feel like they're going to do, no matter what, they're going to play baseball. Like they're just going to go. It's to the detriment of many things, but it's weird. Like, you wake up in the morning and it's all bad news, and then first pitch comes and everyone's happy again for the night, and then it's like Bloomfield said it best. It's like rinse and repeat. It's like everyone forgets everything takes place once 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 Eastern starts. Like everything's fine, and then you wake up in the morning, it starts all over again. And it sucks. That's the world we live in.
It's brutal. I feel like an awful person a lot of the time because I get so much enjoyment and pleasure out of watching the games and playing the game, even though it's crazy. Like I'm just really enjoying it. It's what I love to do. It's my hobby. It's what I, of all the things in the world I could have chosen as a hobby, I chose this and I love it. And so it's really hard to juxtapose that with the way I feel from like a values perspective about the way they're handling it and the safety of the players. And I want to be like, yes, I value the safety of the players, but at the same time, like I'd be so sad if they stopped playing. And so I guess thank you to the players for continuing to play. And again, respect to everybody who's deciding not to, that it's not in their best interest or the best interest of their family. So respect to them and respect to the people who are continuing to play. And let's try to make the best of a bad situation.
It's like I tweeted out last week. I was sitting there watching the game, had the daughter on my chest sleeping, and I was like watching baseball. I'm watching baseball, going, I'm so happy. I was like, I don't say it enough. Baseball just makes life good. So
it does.
Just, let's hope it keeps happening. But we'll be back with you guys next Monday, and we'll talk about whatever took place this week. Hopefully, some good, less bad. We'll see. But you can find Toby on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. I'm on Twitter at BDentric. So Bubba and the Bat Flip episode 46. Catch you guys next time.
Thanks for listening.